G'day there guys, welcome back to In My Shed. I'm BC. So a bit of a follow on from the last episode about grinding small drills. I've been thinking teeny weeny drills are bloody hard to hold. I did look at my Eclipse pin chuck, and you may be able to hold the drill and rotate it to make a small hole or clean a hole out, but I can't see it being concentric enough to get guaranteed results. In a grinding operation, definitely not tool and cutter grinding operation. I do have a little 10mm chuck, sorry, smaller than that, it might be a 8mm chuck. Never been used, it goes down to 0 in the jaw size. I just need a 3/8 UNF bolt to go in the back of it and drill that, and I can hold the drills. And 3-jaw chucks have been notorious for holding small drills on the shank, let alone on the flutes. And once again, the concentricity isn't there to achieve what we're really trying to get, something that's bloody accurate. So, no, that got the coke and sauce, not a real good idea. I did find something that made me think a lot. This little fellow is a miniature 3-jaw lathe chuck. It just tightens on the outside with a Tommy bar and a nailed nut, and I've never used the damn thing. But the jaws just don't tighten down far enough, so no, they got the coke and sauce. One item that will help in amongst all of my shite, I found my little 10x lupe. And one thing you're going to need if you're lining up a teeny weeny drill in a fixture is something to help you see it. That makes it all that much easier. Okay, well that's positive. I scratched around for the rest of my goods. I came back to the ER11 chuck. My collets are only imperial sizes, and they do say like 2 to 3mm, but you can't work them over 1mm in size. That's just bloody ridiculous. But as well as the imperial set I've got, there's a metric set, and when you get down below 1.5mm, they go in 1/4mm steps. So for really teeny weeny stuff, yeah, they do quite a good job. So it's got a dead on nuts 16mm shank, which is, someone put a bloody ruler out there for me with metric on both sides. How stupid can you be? It's 3 and 15/16 100mm long. So I think that'll be a pretty good candidate, and it'll allow me to do 4-facet grinding on slightly larger drills up to say 6mm, which is something that's going to come in handy. I also scratched around and I found a little ER4 or ER5 chuck, and it's a little ripper, but it's been part of a high-speed grinding spindle. There's a flat on the end for a drive pulley, 2 bearing areas that are just about 1 thou under 12mm. And I might try and find what I can get with collets for that, because the smaller the diameter of the collet nut, the easier it is to get the grinding wheel across the front of the drill and put your facet angle on. But we'll start off with this one as a minimum, and both of these I can hold in the bigger chuck if I want to, but a chuck in a chuck in a chuck, and then it gets more difficult to line the bloody thing up. So I had to think of something that you fellas will actually be able to use, and something that's easy to do. So we'll start off with what I have, ER16 chuck. And I don't have a lot of square material, but I've got this nice drop here. Just has to be shortened a little bit, and I'm pretty sure I'll get about 25mm or 1-inch square out of that. So I'll put it up in a lathe, face the ends off, make it look a little bit nicer, drill it and ream it to 16mm. Then we have a body for the holder, and that's a very good candidate to go in shaping machine to be made into a square. And I would like that square to be as accurate as I can get in vise on a shaper, but it's also going to be the square that I use to index. And now you're thinking, hey, this is starting to get simple. What I'm going to use is a bit of angle iron for a V, or a bit of steel for a V, drop the square down into that with the holder, and pick it up and move it 2 flats to get to the other side. If you've got a stop at the back, a pin that comes out into the space you drop this down to, it'll always index to a similar position. And that's your indexing, your position, your tool holding onto a tool and cutter grinder. It'll be dead simple. Now, when I go to the shaper to start cutting the flats on this, I'll give you a look at my 4-facet grinder if you haven't seen that before. I'm going to make something simple, just a little plate with a pivot, bit of angle line up on top, drop this in, and you'll all have 4-facet drills very, very quickly. Now, keep in mind, all of this doesn't have to be tool room accuracy. Instead of just a pin stop at the back, if you don't have micrometer in feed like a tool and cutter grinder, put an adjusting screw to push this further forward. And for a slide, just a bit of plywood with 4 wheel bearings or small bearings on it. Now you've got to think very fairly simple. So I think this will be a goer, and let's get amongst it. And here's the bit you didn't get last time, and this will make you laugh. This drill is that horribly ground that all it does is wander around on the surface of the material and doesn't cut. Now it makes a liar out of me. It's cutting, but very, very slowly. It was doing a horrible dance around on the material. Not a complete failure, but definitely not a win. That's the 2.5mm drill. Let's see how we went with the 2mm. I forgot we hadn't done this last week. Move it over, Red Rover, to about there. Well, that's a bit of all right. Very good. It's not drilling very fast. I put 5 degrees clearance on there instead of the factory 12. Try and get a little bit of drill life if I can. Fancy losing a chuck key. So 2.5mm 0, 2mm without the swarf, 1. It's drilling, but it's also noisy. So I won't say that's a success. Still, 1 out of 3 when you can't see what you're doing is pretty good. We'll get on to machining some parts now. Okay guys, just to be a little bit different, I'm using a spotting drill rather than a centre drill. Try and keep it as concentric with the body as I can. I'll then pile it through with a long series drill and then get the pre-reaming drill, which in this case it will be 5/8, but before that I'll determine what length I want to part it off or keep it full length. Okay, let's make some noise. I'll keep a little bit of pressure on the core and let the drill seek its own centre. It should be enough. Now I do keep a bit of this gooey goop on the point of the drill, and for a good reason. One is to prevent built-up edge, and for the other is to help with a bit of extracting the chips. I'll just back you out a little bit there. That's a bit better, I think. Okay, this will take a while, so I'll bring you back later on. Okay guys, we've stepped it up to a Sutton straight shank 5/8 chuck, which I think will leave us 12 thou to ream, something like that. Many years ago, I got this large Jacobs chuck in. It's a 20mm capacity chuck for a customer, and he just changed his mind. He couldn't care less, and I was stuck with several $100s worth of stock. It's been a godsend. You can hold 20mm taps with it. It is a bloody ripper. And it's on a 3 Morse taper drive too, which is quite good. Let's make some chips. It's just rolling the stuff out. Keeping it well lubed. Knee pole work can really play hell with your tools if you're not careful. And to show you how much horsepower they absorb, these big tools, you burn your fingers taking the work out of the chuck. I'll bring you back when we're about to read. Well, you missed out on the exciting bit. The drill started slipping in the chuck. Made a little pucker to go. Okay, I've knocked the RPM back to 120. The reamer's going in full length, so I will peck out of it a couple of times. That's a lot of depth. Luckily, it's only taking 12 thou. If there's that much left, I think the drill would be 2 or 3 thou oversize, and it's gone as a cool down. You can see a wear pattern on the front of the drill, but I don't think you'd pick it up. Out of focus. Bugger. It was just a good example of a drill wearing normal wear, as you'd expect, as it does its job. Okay, let's see if I can snap this Chinese cobalt reamer. I hope not. Well, I think the drilled oversized, or the reamer's a bit undersized. It's hardly picking up a bit. Now I can feel it starting to load up. Still almost nothing on there. I think the other end will be closer to size. Yeah, just the tiniest bit of swarf on there. As the Yanks would say, sand it. Getting tight. Shouldn't be, there's no swarf on it, or very little. I'd say the Roman might have taken a thab out of there. I'll let it cool down for a while and put it through again. We'll see what happens then in about half an hour. Well, I mightn't be in too much trouble. There's a little bit of swarf on the reamer. It looks like a reasonable green finish. No burr on the front. And there's just a couple of thou clearance. I'll wait to see what it's like when it's cool. So far, so good. There might be a bit of a delay in this project. New Briggs & Stratton cylinder head gasket. Poor old rider mower has pooed itself. Anyway, the grass has to be cut. I'll bring you back as we progress further on this project. Okay guys, back again, this time with audio. I'm trying to make 4 sides on the body so I can hold it on a table flat and up against the fence. And I was worried about keeping the bore concentric with the outer, and I realised that you don't really have to. As long as I've got 4 faces, you turn it 180 degrees to grind the other facet. If this isn't quite concentric in an angular fashion, it only means 1.5 or half a degree or whatever off 135 or 118, whatever you're grinding. So that's not really important. And the stick out from the collet from the front, even if it's not overly concentric, won't change the position of the drill. So this is probably one reason why this particular item is going to be a popular one to build, because it doesn't have to be that bloody accurate. I'm using the shaper for a bit of reciprocating therapy, and also there's so much crap in front of the milling machine in that loco building stand, I just don't feel like moving all of that. So it's currently sitting at about 5/8 wide. I'm trying to aim for about 1 inch on all facets, and if necessary I'll clean it up later. Okay, away we go. It's a piece of, I'm sure, hot gold material. It's absolute rubbish to machine. The tool I've got in the tool holder is just a general purpose, can move both ways, shaping tool, nothing really flash. Matter of fact, I don't know how long it is since it's been sharpened. I think it'll start removing a bit soon. I bloody hope so. otherwise it'll be a boring action shot. But here we go. It just works so effortlessly at doing this, but you've got to realise it's only pushing one cutting edge. I'll do this roughing out on all four faces, and then I'll change over to a shading tool to finish it. After the drill press, the shaping machine was the second machine tool that I learned to use. And the very first project, I shot it across the floor of the machine shop practice room. Not my doing, just a bit of a practical joke in inverted commas from a couple of the class bullies. So there's no real need to put you through half an hour watching the shaper go backwards and forwards. So I'll see if this is up to size or up to width. And what I'll do is I'll turn it then and do the opposite side, and then put the opposites or both sides vertical and do those two that are remaining. So it should come out reasonably square, just that bit of rudimentary work. Not taking any deep cuts or heavy traverse. Just want to ease my way across. They're very easy to do. Just a fraction under. I might take about half a mil to finish that up. I'll bring you back when it gets even more exciting than this. Okay, to try and get it to be a little bit close as possible, I've just measured the distance from the edge of the hole to the top, and I've written it down on that side, 8.22 millimeters. And by keeping it close, it makes the finishing job a lot easier and much easier to get it concentric. G'day there guys, welcome back. It's now 2 days further ahead. Rider mower's going again. 10mm socket has disappeared into the cowls under the motor, and I'm not going to strip it down for the sake of a 10mm socket. But the dreaded 10mm socket, the first time I've lost one. So I off into one of my other kits and found a spare. Okay, I've taken the workpiece out of the shaper vise and brought it over here to the mill because it's more accessible for what I do. This is a bit of an unusual setup. I'm squaring up the body for this attachment, but one thing I'm trying to do is make the outside conform to the bore. Normally you would make the outside and then bore it, but my horizontal bore isn't working, and I don't trust any other setup to try and get as close as I can. So what I've done is I put the chuck inside the body, got a long travel dial indicator, measured the height, came to the other end, and if there was a difference, I used a perfectly calibrated pry bar to lift it up, and it took 3 goes, but I got it within 1/100th of a millimetre. When I tightened the vise, it came up 3/100ths, but I'm hoping it'll be the same at both ends. It'll just be the vise jaw cocking up as the pressure on the work went on. What I'll do now is take the material down till I hit a dimension like about 5mm or something, I think I'm going to settle on. At the moment, this body I feel is too big to be comfortable handling it with a teeny weeny fairy fart drill in it. So I'll skinny it down on all four sides, try and get it as square as I can, and then we'll decide on the length. I'll drill in from a corner to put a locking screw on. And what I'll do is I'll set up a parallel or something that's roughly the same height of the cutting edge above the table, and then I'll lock the screw and I'll turn the drill around till the drill lines up with the parallel, tighten up the collet nut, and then I've got that cutting edge parallel to the body of the attachment. Now that will only last for about 2 or 3 thou ground off the end of the drill, because you're grinding on a spiral and the cutting edge will tend to rotate as you grind it back. But if you only take a few thou at a time and you use a careful loupe to set it up, you should be able to get away with it reasonably well. And it's only on the primaries that you have to worry about that. I'm going back to front, I'm grinding the primaries first and then the secondary, because the secondary you don't have to be so farty. Anyway, I'll take the indicator off, raise the table and start taking a bit of material off. Bring you back then. G'day there guys, welcome back. It's now 2 days further ahead. Rider mower's going again. 10mm socket has disappeared into the cowls under the motor, and I'm not going to strip it down for the sake of a 10mm socket. But the dreaded 10mm socket, the first time I've lost one. So I off into one of my other kits and found a spare. Okay, I've taken the workpiece out of the shape of ice and brought it over here to the mill because it's more accessible for what I do. This is a bit of an unusual setup. I'm squaring up the body for this attachment, but one thing I'm trying to do is make the outside conform to the bore. Normally you would make the outside and then bore it, but my horizontal borer isn't working, and I don't trust any other setup to try and get as close as I can. So what I've done is I put the chuck inside the body, got a long travel dial indicator, measured the height, came to the other end, and if there was a difference, I used a perfectly calibrated pry bar to lift it up, and it took 3 goes, but I got it within 1/100th of a millimetre. When I tightened the vise, it came up 3/100ths, but I'm hoping it'll be the same at both ends. It'll just be the vise jaw cocking up as the pressure on the work went on. What I'll do now is take the material down till I hit a dimension like about 5mm or something I think I'm going to settle on. At the moment, this body I feel is too big to be comfortable handling it with a teeny weeny fairy fart drill in it. So I'll skinny it down on all 4 sides, try and get it as square as I can, and then we'll decide on the length. I'll drill in from a corner to put a locking screw on. And what I'll do is I'll set up a parallel or something that's roughly the same height of the cutting edge above the table, and then I'll lock the screw and I'll turn the drill around till the drill lines up with the parallel, tighten up the collet nut, and then I've got that cutting edge parallel to the body of the attachment. Now that will only last for about 2 or 3 thou ground off the end of the drill, because you're grinding on a spiral and the cutting edge will tend to rotate as you grind it back. But if you only take a few thou at a time and you use a careful loupe to set it up, you should be able to get away with it reasonably well. And it's only on the primaries that you have to worry about that. I'm going back to front, I'm grinding the primaries first and then the secondary, because the secondary you don't have to be so farty. Anyway, I'll take the indicator off, raise the table and start taking a bit of material off. Bring you back then. Hi guys, that's our drill holding and indexing fixture. Just about finished. It just needs a screw in from one of the corners after I mill a flat there for a clamping screw. So it's lock the drill up, put it up against the siding gauge and then clamp it up. Ready to go. Well guys, that'll be it for this session. I've finally got rid of that rider mower out of the shed, but I've got plenty of other work to do tomorrow. I'll probably come back to this over the weekend. It's been a pretty good trip. I enjoy getting back onto the machines after working out of a toolbox. But it came up reasonably good. I just lament that I don't have another surface grinder yet until I get the little bugger up and running. I could have got it down that last couple of hundredths of a millimetre, but I think it's within about 300ths of a mil around the square. So that's fairly good. So as I said earlier, it's just machine off one of the corners, put a 4mm screw in there to lock this with a little drop of brass in there, a little washer of brass or whatever, and all of the hard work, not all, but a lot of the hard work's been done. Now if you haven't been there yet, there's a YouTube channel put up by a fellow called Harold Hall. He's a model engineer from England, and he did quite a lot on 4-facet drill grinding years ago, but I think the limitation of his site is he's building something towards a workshop that's got a hacksaw and a file and a drill press, and I'm hoping you guys got a little bit more. Okay, please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next clip.